What's up, guys? Spartan, and in today's Battlecats video, I'm ranking Ubers on whether they're overrated, underrated, or if the rankings are from the Battlecats community are balanced. But before I get into the rankings, if you enjoy the video, like, subscribe, and turn notifications on so you don't miss an upload. And if you agree, disagree with any of the rankings, have something to say about the video, comment down below. Open discussion, just keep it civil. But let's get right into the video. And starting things off, we have Cat Clan Heroes, who has the reputation as arguably the worst dynamite. And this reputation comes from their mediocre range, their mediocre stats, and a mediocre niche. Now, although the Cat Clan Heroes can weaken 3 traits, the problem is the procs are inconsistent and their stats are so low that they don't do much else. They also have, I believe, a 3% chance of a critical hit, so if you're lucky enough and you keep your fingers crossed, you might get that. That might not even kill a normal metal hippo, though, because their attack power and DPS are very low. I think they have a fair rank. I think they have a fair rank in the Battlecast community. I think people dog on them for a reason. And in the past, I thought Marauder Cat was the worst. And over time, I realized I was dead wrong. Marauder Cat is up there in the terms of the best dynamites, and I dogged on him when I shouldn't. But now I know that Cat Clan Heroes is likely the worst in that set. Not much debate. But now we have 4 elemental Pixies. I'm going to start things off with Bora. And Bora is arguably the best of his set of elemental Pixies. And Bora, he is resistant to aliens, but he also deals massive damage. He has enough range where he could stay out of the way of enemy attacks, because aliens tend to have relatively short range. And he's just a powerhouse. I think he's balanced. Next, we have Air. And Air, people don't talk about Air a whole lot, but what Air can do is sit in the back, break barriers, take a lot of shots, especially for a backliner, and just chip at enemies. So that's a pretty valuable thing, and people don't talk about him. So he will be the first slightly underrated unit on my list. After that, we have Gravelodon. This isn't his true form, but I also think that Gravelodon is slightly underrated. Although, I'm going to change that to fairly rated, honestly, because I think that Gravelodon is widespreadly is not a word, but I think that his usage is widespread throughout the game. People recognize he's a good tank. He has wave attack guaranteed, and for being a frontliner, he has a good amount of DPS, even for that, because when you combine the wave damage and his base damage, he is a tank that can deal damage, and that's valuable. He takes a lot of shots, and that combined with a cheap price and pretty quick cooldown, and you have a pretty good unit right there. An underrated unit I will put here is Misley. Slightly underrated, because Misley Syndrome has really decimated Misley's character to the point of almost no return. For people who don't know what Misley Syndrome is, it's a combination of knockback and slow, because it pushes the enemies back. Your enemies go towards them, then the enemies kill them. But there's a lot of units that do this, and they just don't get talked about. I think Misley is slightly underrated, because Misley is not the best in the set, but definitely doesn't get recognition for what she can do. Next, we have Flute Girl, and Flute Girl is pretty balanced. Just look at the stats. I don't even think I have to explain too much on this one, but Flute Girl is where it's at. Amatu next. I'm going to change my ranking. In one video, I had Amatu and underrated, and I don't think that anymore, because I've realized there's other units that can destroy multiple traits, if not all of them, just like she can, and do a better job. You have Gal. I forgot the name of one of the units, but has half the recharge of Gal with similar DPS. Pretty crazy stuff. So Amaterasu is no longer the queen of this niche. There are more units that can do what she can do. And although she is one of the best Ubers in the set, you could argue top 2 or 3 for Almighties, I still think she's a balanced Uber. Great pick if you can get her. If you get her, it's a great roll, great luck. But I'm going to leave her in balanced. Next, we have, I believe, my first legend, or my second. I have Kaisaka Nanaho here, and she could break barriers and do critical hits. She has multi-hit, long range. She has a pierce, so she can go past her range, but she does have a blind spot. Keep that in mind. 7 knockbacks and resilient to metal enemies. So she is a mixed bag. She's either really good in some of these stages, or her damage and DPS are too low. But you will also find that because of her piercing range, that problem gets resolved pretty quickly because she can go very far and she can be used in some general lineups, in my opinion. Her blind spot is the number one thing to worry about, but that combined with her fast movement speed, and that could be a bit of a problem. But she also does have 7 knockbacks, so she has good mobility. The problem with 7 knockbacks when having low health, though, is that you can get juggled around a lot. So with her, I think she's balanced. People know that she's a top 10 legend in the game, but I don't think she's anything more than that. All right, next we have Luminara or something, Luminara. I know it's the Nikuga legend, but I'm going to butcher that name a lot. So Luminara is, in my opinion, slightly underrated because Luminara has the reputation of one of, if not the worst, legend rares. And I think Luminara is quite good. Even though that there are better legend rares, it doesn't mean Luminara is a bad unit. If you pull Luminara, then that doesn't mean you're going to lose the game. In fact, it will probably help you because there really aren't bad legends in the game. You could say it's unfortunate they didn't get a better one, but I mean, at the end of the day, any legend you have is probably a plus. So, slightly underrated. 5-digit DPS, I mean, that kind of goes unnoticed. You could make a case for, being balanced. Maybe you think the criticism is deserved, but then you also have to think about the Omni Strike, the long range. So, pretty interesting stuff here. I do think he's slightly underrated. I think it's a mixed bag here. And I'm going to move on to the next ranking, which is Icecat. And Icecat, I think, is... I think she's balanced. Although, in early games, she could be quite useful with her freeze, and if she landed 2 or 3 in a row, it could be really good. But she doesn't usually do that. Luminara, no, not Luminara. Icecat is inconsistent, has pretty low stats, honestly, but is cheap, has quick cooldown, and pretty easy to get because it's in the dynamites, which most people got their first Uber on. So, pretty common Uber. In fact, really common Uber. I'm going to say she's balanced because of her inconsistency and her low stats, but she still has a place in a lot of players' hearts for beating the Andom and players and enemies like that. Moving on, we have the limited edition unit Kunio-kun, and I'm glad I got to say that on camera because I butchered the name the last time I did, but Kunio-kun in its first or second form has different usages. One's a melee rusher, the other is a long range, and but at the end of the day, they both suck. There is silver lining though. Cat combo, it's actually a pretty useful one. Just put the evolved version in the slot. It takes up 1 slot, and your worker cat goes way up. So that's pretty good. I see players with him once in a while, but usually only when he's on during an event. But I think because of that cat combo, he will ever so slightly, by the grace of God, be slightly underrated because that cat combo has been very useful. Pairing him with Rich Cat, you take 2 spots up, but at the same time you start with 500 cash and 10,500 Rich Cat. So that's pretty useful just for having a 2-unit combo right there. I think you get 3 or 4 combos between the 2 units right there, as long as they're, put them in the first row next to each other. And next we have Cat Machine, who I think is balanced. Cat Machine is, in its true form, could do a lot of DPS and damage, but it's a frontliner, so you'd expect that. It also tanks in a lot against multiple different traits, red and alien, so that's pretty useful as well. Area attack, so it can clear out a lot of enemies at once, if it doesn't get knocked back or killed or miss its shot, of course. The best comparison I could draw him to is second form Bahamut Cat, an evolved form, because he tends to miss his shots, but if he hits them, really powerful. But once again, his usage is a tank that could deal damage. So I think he's balanced. He'll help you a lot into the future in Empire Cats, especially into the future, in my opinion. I think having an alien tank is important. And another balance, I know there's a lot of balance right now, but we're going to get to our underrated and overrated in just a sec. But I think that the Nurse Cat, Knockback, and Slow, Floating, and Alien, or no, Floating and Black. And, that's Misley syndrome, but nobody talks about that. But I think Nurse Cat is balanced because in the beginning of the game, a lot of people have her, and she's one of the sole reasons people could beat Bun Bun. And when you beat Bun Bun, you get Bahamut, and that's really the next step in the game. I know for me, on my account, Nurse Cat has carried me to that championship status. You go from being stuck on Bun Bun to being able to progress through the rest of the game because of one unit. And I don't think I'd have Bahamut, as quickly as I got him without the assistance of Nurse Cat and the knockbacks and the crowd support and, decent stats. But the niche, when it works, it works. My underrated is Gao. I think you have to look at his stats again before you disagree with that, because against Straightless, he possesses over 20,000 DPS from almost 500 range away. High stats in general, so just the fact that you could put him in as a generalist, you could do that. But his specialty is very special, and I think Gao is respected as a good unit by most players. I'm not doubting that, but I don't think people realize that he is one of, if not the best, anti-traitless. And my overrated, I'm just going to put her slightly overrated. Matama gets the rep for being a top 5 Uber, and I think she's definitely a top 10. But the top 5 thing, you have your Phonos. I think the Cassoulies are better. And then you can make a case for the 5th guy, but I don't think it's Matama. Matama is really good, though. So I don't want to put her much more than slightly overrated, because that wouldn't be just. But this is my list. We go from Matama down to Gao and everything in between. If you guys enjoy the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn notifications on. And if you guys have any comments, leave them down below. Feel free to discuss. Feel free to debate. That's part of what the community is supposed to do. Just keep it civil. Spartan Cat signing off. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.